man had stolen merely a loaf of bread, yet bore nearly 20 years of imprisonment for this transgression. His prolonged incarceration was finally approaching its conclusion, but the warden deliberately erected obstacles, demanding he complete additional tasks before permitting his departure from prison. To regain his freedom, he was compelled to grit his teeth and accomplish this arduous challenge. Upon witnessing his completion of the challenge, the warden reluctantly honored his promise. However, he was shocked to discover that the documentation classified him as a high-risk individual. Even after release, he would be required to report periodically to the police station for supervision. Confronted with such injustice, his heart burned with fury. Despite harboring deep hatred for Warden Javert, he could only suppress his rage and accept the documents. He had not anticipated that life beyond prison walls would prove even more arduous than incarceration itself. Bearing the stigma of a criminal record and the label of a dangerous individual, he encountered rejection everywhere, with no one willing to offer him opportunity. Even his attempt to spend the night in a stable resulted in the owner's disdain and expulsion. Starving and freezing in the snowy night, he could only seek shelter among the dead through the endless hours of darkness. At his most desperate moment, a cleric appeared before him. He mistook the location for a cemetery, when in fact it was the sacred courtyard of a church. The priest, with compassionate heart, provided him with a warm sanctuary, carefully preparing sustenance and a place of rest. However, years of suffering had caused him to lose all hope in humanity. He betrayed the priest's trust, stealing valuable items under cover of darkness. Yet before he could dispose of the stolen goods, he was again ensnared by the law. Unexpectedly, the priest claimed these items were gifts bestowed upon him, even voluntarily producing more valuable objects, stating he had forgotten them upon departure. Without a complainant, the police had no choice but to release his restraints. Due to over 20 years of enduring injustice and suffering, he had become utterly disillusioned with the world. The priest's act of mercy rescued him from the precipice of moral degradation. He resolved to reform himself, tearing to shreds the documents that represented his past shame. 8 years passed in the blink of an eye. He established a factory under a new identity. Through his own efforts, he earned the people's trust and was even elected mayor. However, a beautiful female worker in the factory attracted jealousy and harassment from colleagues. Just as he prepared to intervene in the conflict, he unexpectedly glimpsed a familiar face. He dispatched his subordinate to handle the female worker's situation while he confronted his former warden, Javert. The passage of time and transformation of identity rendered him completely unrecognizable to Javert. Javert had been assigned to this city as police chief, becoming his administrative subordinate. He merely sensed something familiar about the mayor, as if they had met before. Terror gripped his heart, fearing that prolonged eye contact might expose his true identity. At this tense moment, sounds of an accident suddenly erupted outside. Descending to investigate, he discovered a horse-drawn cart had trapped an elderly man beneath it. In this life-or-death situation, he could not consider other consequences. He exerted all his strength to lift the heavily loaded cart. Having witnessed this scene, Javert became even more convinced of his suspicions. He determined that the mayor before him was the prisoner who had vanished from prison years ago. However, lacking concrete evidence, he dared not act rashly. Shortly thereafter, correspondence from superior authorities reached his hands. The letter indicated that the escaped convict had been recaptured and was currently awaiting judicial proceedings. Javert felt profound shame, believing he had wrongly suspected the mayor, and personally visited to express his apologies. The mayor graciously indicated that Javert need not feel guilty about the matter, counseling him to abandon his psychological burden and focus on returning to his official duties. After Javert's departure, he was seized with shock and terror upon realizing that an innocent person would bear the punishment in his stead. His gaze once again fell upon the pair of candlesticks the priest had given him years ago. Ultimately, he resolved to save that innocent scapegoat. He departed immediately for the courthouse, traveling through the night. Before the assembled crowd, he openly confessed that he was indeed the long-missing escaped convict.